Oh, I just got your text, Ted.
You're here.
All right. We should be.
I got a notification.
I can hear you on my phone. So
It's
you're
good?
Yep.
Okay. We still don't have a name for this show. And every week we're trying to figure out, welcome to the something, but this is the Racing for Recovery success story Friday afternoon deal. Joe Brinkman. What do we want to start with? I want to start with this. What did you think of last night's Racing for Recovery support group?
That was probably one of the best ones I've been to. I remember you and I talking afterwards and how when we started doing the live stream, being able to reach all those people that couldn't be there. And I remember we had a couple before we started doing the live stream where I was like, man, that was a really, it's not just a positive, it was powerful. A lot of the stuff that was said there was really emotional. I mean, a lot of those people that you heard the stuff from, it's stuff that you don't normally hear in a lot of support group meetings, and you could just feel like even though people were crying and getting emotional, like there was no judgment, it was just all like love, and it was a lot, man. And I remember I was like, okay, when we first started doing the live stream, I was like, okay, we're getting used to the new format, and everything that happened, and I was like, these were good meetings, but I was waiting for that one, as I told you, that one big, powerful one. And I think as soon as it got done, both you and I were like, that was it. That was a meeting. Yep. So, no, that was, man, it just felt great to be there for that,
Yeah. How does it, because I'm sitting in your seat where you normally sit on Thursdays, how do you feel sitting up there playing such an intricate role and delivering the technical part of the live stream? How does it feel to sit up there during that time?
It feels good, man. I remember when I first started just sitting up here, when I first started coming to racing, I would always sit, if not with my family, at least with like my friends, and just kind of sit and kind of be part of the group. But the reason I always want to sit at what we like to call the big boy table up here with you was just like I wanted to take a bigger role in racing. I wanted to take a role not just to be a participant in this program, but I wanted to have a greater impact on that. And you always say that you need to surround yourself with people that you aspire to be. And ever since I started coming to racing, I've always wanted to learn from you. I mean, I know we've had conversations before. I've been in your ILP, I've been in your office, but it was just getting up here and being able to be, part of this up here and just be more than just a participant and be a small part. I mean, I know I kind of just started out writing down who was up next and making sure the meeting flowed well, but then when the live stream came on and now I'm in charge of the cameras and everything, it's like, I'm not just a participant, like I'm actively helping to get that message out and make this go as best as we can. So.
Absolutely, and as you know from being in Racing for Recovery as long as you have been, it's a team effort. I mean, I sit up here, I don't know how to do what Todd's doing right now and what you do every Thursday, and I need that. I depend on that. It's like I can sit up here now with more peace and just do what I'm supposed to do, knowing that you and Brendan and everybody else has their role going in what they're doing, and it's comforting to know that. So thank you for doing
Absolutely.
that. So let's back up. So I want to know, and we don't do a lot of war stories and stuff, but what we do is talk about the emotions and the feelings that were behind our drug usage and alcohol usage. And I've known you for 4 years?
Going on, I think 4 or 5 now.
Yeah. Back at my old office when things weren't as big as we're getting, right? So who was that Joe? When you first came to my office for counseling, who was that Joe?
So, I kind of thought about how to go about that in a short time frame and still get like kind of the point across. And I guess even starting out early, I mean, when you sit in a meeting like this and you hear some of the people's stories and you hear just like, and I don't want to negate anyone's experiences, when you hear like how bad it was and all the things they went through, and then I examined my own story and I was like, I did it was bad, but I can't imagine going to jail, doing all this stuff. And I guess mine didn't really stem from wanting, it's kind of hard to say, I guess, but basically I kind of always felt like an outcast growing up, I guess. I was never ostracized by my peers or anything. I wasn't like a bullied kid so much. Like I got made fun of for being short and whatnot, but I never really found like a group that I fit into. And I was thinking back to like my high school years when I wasn't exactly popular, but I was well liked, I guess, but I could never find like that niche to fit into. Like I played sports, but I was also a really geeky kid. You know, I love video games and comic books. And I never really found a group that I fit into. You know, I had a group of friends, and you know, it was good and everything, but I always just, growing up, I've always felt like an outcast. So when it came, you know, to my college years, and even towards the end of high school, like when I started drinking and, you know, experimenting with drugs and everything like most people do at that age, I found that people seemed to like me when I was that way, when I was, you know, drunk or high or whatnot. And I kind of just took that, and, you know, people would be like, oh, you know, do you remember when Joe did that funny thing or this happened? And it was kind of like, you know, wow, people are starting to like notice and starting to think I'm funny and all that. And so I guess it just kind of kept up, you know, all through college. It was, on the weekends, it was, you know, what kind of crazy stuff can we get into? I mean, I'm thankful that none of my antics ever got me into like legal trouble or anything. You know, I never got hurt, I never hurt anyone, but I just remember it was always progressively, what is like the next crazy thing I can do? What's the next big sort of talking point that I could do? So, and I recognize that I think I just really enjoyed, I'm not going to use the word drama, more like the chaos of it, you know? Just being able to come into work or class the next Monday after a crazy weekend and have people be like, man, did you hear about this? And, oh, you were so crazy last night. And I guess I just kind of embraced that party person atmosphere, persona, I should say. And so it got progressively through college. I mean, like I said, I never got into legal trouble, but I know I did a lot of stupid things, and, you know, and I guess I just kind of embraced it, and I really just kind of wanted to keep going with it even after college. And then past college, the party didn't get so fun anymore, you know, and it was like, okay, I really need to take a step back, and I really need to look at some stuff. And unfortunately, it took me up until about this past year to really, you know, decide enough was enough, and that the chaos was just too exhausting, and the toll it was taking on my relationships, my work, my physical and mental health was just way too much to deal with. So being able just to kind of, you know, I don't have one defining moment where it was just like, you know, this is enough, this is my rock bottom. It was almost like I was at the edge of the abyss. I could see where I was going to go and what else was going to happen. And I recognized if I didn't take some sort of action, it was only going to get worse from there.
You're making, well, one thing that I hear in everything you just said right there was it's a lack of self.
Right.
Right? Do you recall, like, when you were coming in, because I want to speak for a minute on what I saw. I see this young, awesome kid. I can't believe I'm talking to you like that, but I see this young kid who's intelligent, is funny. You know, I would see that, and we would talk, and then when you would come in, like when you were just coming off of a run or whatever, and I would just see you as this, like you were broken to me. I'm looking at you and I'm like, man, I know how he feels physically, but it was like there was nothing in there going on emotionally. It was almost like you were just like, I don't care. And that's how I was seeing you when we would talk in my office. And those are the times when you were sick, you know, and you would be off.
Yeah.
So my question and all that, Joe, is when you were coming in there, was any of this, were you hearing it? Were you hearing it? Was anything getting in your head?
I think it was. You know, I remember when and I'm going to kind of relate this to your own story with racing, you know, you even said that you remember when you were still trying to get sober and go to those meetings, and that girlfriend at the time kind of planted that seed for what would eventually become this place. And a lot of our talks did do that. I remember, I think you'd asked me at one point in one of our meetings, you know, like, are you really happy with what's going on right now? And I think at that time, I can't remember if I was just coming off or I was like, had been sober for a little bit, and I was kind of just in that new state of sobriety, and I was like, I don't know if I'm really happy. So there's always that little voice in the back of my head and everything I was doing, like, you know, is this really making you happy? You know, is this happy? Like, does my job, is this really making you happy? The things I was trying. And I just remember being like, I guess, we'll kind of feel it out and see what goes on. And then I distinctly remember the last time I did drink before I came in here, it was, to spare you all the details, I remember I was at home in my apartment alone. It was late at night, and I was, deep into it. And I remember that little voice came back up, and he's like, "Are you happy now?" And I was like, "Oh, man, okay. This is time for me to change some things up." So a lot of it was getting through. It's just at the time I was a very stubborn person. I've always done everything in my own way. I kind of took pride in people saying, like, the thing about Joe is he's headstrong, he's stubborn, he's bullheaded, but it was always in a negative way. It was never like, if someone were to say, like, you can't be sober, you can't stay sober, like, you're party Joe, I'd be like, you know what, you're absolutely right, I can't do that, I'm going to keep whatever. And now I think I've been able to take that and really use that stubbornness and that, headstrongness in positive directions as opposed to negative ones before. I remember going to other support group meetings and other programs and them being like, you have to do this, you have to go to 90-90, so on, whatever the thing was. I remember saying, no, that's dumb, I'm not going to do that. I don't have to do what you say, I'm going to do it my way. It's going to work out. And clearly it did not work out for a number of years, but the thing that's different now is, being a part of racing is that we don't have a set, oh, you're new to sobriety, here's your list that you have to do. And I remember that used to frustrate the absolute hell out of me when I came to your meetings. I would come when you were going to the church, when we were still at the church in those meetings, and I remember just seeing all these happy people. I think that's the first time I met guys like you, Steve, Kelly, and they would just be talking about, life is so great with sobriety. And I remember saying, how did you get there? Like, what did you do? And I never got that roadmap. And I'm pretty sure at that point you could have put up a dry erase board and walked me through every step you took to get to where you are today, and I still would have been like, I'm not going to do that because you're telling me to do that. And I realized that that's the piece that I was really missing about this, is that my point A was, stop drinking. Like, that was it. And then point B is wherever I'm going to go. And I never knew how to get those, how to bridge those two. And I was always looking for someone to just draw out the path for me. This is the steps you have to take to get the life that you want. And I realized that I get to do that, and that's my choice and my decision. So now that I'm not using it anymore, I'm able to, like, it's almost like a freedom of choice that I have now. I can do whatever I want as long as it's getting me closer to that path and where I want to go eventually.
I love it. That's true. So, and I do believe this is a testament to your awesome family, because, and I don't like using this word respect because I don't view myself as that, but again, when you used to come to my office, I know there's a gap in our age, but I also, and this is me interpreting it, I would sit there and I would think, God, what is this young dude thinking right now? He physically feels like garbage. And here I am talking about all these other things. If I was you back then, I'd be like, old man, shut your mouth. But you were always attentive. You were never combative. And I always admired and respected you for that, for just at least listening to what I was saying. And I kept imagining it was like a yin and yang. Like, you're hearing me and you're going, I know that dude's onto something because he's doing it and I'm not, but I don't quite want to do it or whatever. But I always admired you for at least showing up and not, just being disruptive and combative. You were pleasant, you were productive, and you at least listened. And now transferring that into the success you've had, I want to ask you and have you talk about, like, what that transition to actually living this has been like for you when you came back into our IOP group and stuff. Because you changed once you started coming in. And what was that like?
I think a big part of that was, and we've talked about this too, is all those years ago, my main focus of coming to see you was literally just because someone was making me go see you. Not that I didn't enjoy the time that we had in those meetings, but the whole point of me doing all that at that time was, okay, I need to get sober so I can go back and start working again, or go back and do this and go back to whatever that normal routine was, you know, but I never really changed anything. It was always the same people I hung out with, the same things I did, and nothing ever changed. I mean, I would get sober, we'd meet up for a couple of weeks, and then I'd say, you know what, I'm good, we don't need to meet anymore, everything's all right, and then like clockwork, every like 6 months I'd be back in there. Oh, hey, Todd, I don't know what happened, you know, things went bad again. And I think the big change this time was, one, my employer right now is just fantastic about it. They were, after, you know, letting them know what was going on, which I never did with anyone. You know, I never told anyone what was happening, anyone outside of my family or you guys. No one really knew. I would just disappear for a couple days, come back in, you know, looking a little better than I always used to, but just being honest with them and letting them know, like, look, I don't know what I need to do, but I'm not going to be able to deliver what you need from me if I don't go get some help. So they were generous enough to give me basically a 2-month break from work and just say, you know what, take this time, go do what you do, and you come back when you're ready. And then at that point, when I transitioned into the IOP, I wasn't just trying to complete it to go back to work. I was actually like, okay, I know I have at least 2 months that I have to keep coming here. I might as well get all I can out of it. Yep. And I think a big part of what helped me this time is I was able to connect with people in that group, because I mean, I saw them every day, and in other times I went to an IOP program or something like that, like you'd go to your IOP, you'd see these people for 3 hours, and you'd go back to your own normal life, and that was it. Mm-hmm. And this time around, that I spent more time here with those people, developing those relationships, I was able to get a group of people who were not only friends, but were also dealing with the same stuff I was. And we were all in the same boat, and we were all looking for the same thing, and I think that's why we all bonded so quickly. So then, when weekends would come up, which were always, I wouldn't call them my triggers because I really disliked that word, but I just didn't have anything to do on weekends. And so when I'd get bored and my mind would start racing, that's the time where I'd be like, you know what, screw it, I might as well get drunk because it'll pass the time. And now that I had a group of friends that I could call and hang out with and do things with, I think really made all the difference. Being able to do that initially and just develop that social aspect where I could talk to people or, you know, reach out to someone if I had a problem, you know, and find out that they were dealing with the same thing is really what kind of helped me, which then led into a lot of other things, because I had all this group of friends I was hanging out with, and then I was also like, well, you know, okay, that's great, but like, what else? What's next? What's next? And then, you know, that started out with just working out in the gym here, something that I used to do quite often, but I mean, I never really got back into it. So then that evolved into working out. That evolved into different things. You know, we went on a camping trip, the group there, and that was that's the first time I think I've been camping with a bunch of sober people and not, you know, gotten drunk or high or whatever. And I just remember when I first got to that camping trip, I was like, this is the weirdest group of people that has ever gone camping, I think, in the history of mankind. I mean, there was like me and Jake who were like a younger group and a couple other people, and it was just such a wide range of like ages and demographics and everything, but we all had a fantastic time, and we all, you know, just got along really well. And I think that is one of the big major turning points for me, where I was like, okay, I think I'm onto something. You know, I think this is probably a better idea than the things I was doing in the past. And just making those kind of positive changes, I think, is really the main differentiator between this time and all the other times that I tried to get sober. It's not that, I mean, back then I would change things, but I wouldn't be making drastic changes. I would do little tiny things, you know, maybe I'll read a book tonight, maybe I'll do this, but I just kept falling back into my old patterns. And this time around, now that I had, you know, the time and the motivation to just do something different and make a major change, it helped me kind of develop a whole new routine. I mean, my life the last 10 months has been it's drastically different than it was before. A lot of it's still the same. I still go to work. I still, you know, do the normal things that everyone does, but outside of that, like, it's just way different. I'm able to, and it's funny because my mom was talking to me last night, and she said, you're so different now, because back then if you had any issues or you had a problem or something, you would never try to solve it. You would just get pissed off and blame someone and get angry. And now if I have a problem, it's like, okay, here's my problem. What am I going to do to solve it? That's right. And I think that kind of still goes back to that headstrongness, that stubbornness I had, where it was never my fault. Nothing was ever my fault. You know, all of this that's happened to me was someone else's fault. It was society, it was my boss, it was whatever you want to put blame on. And now I'm able to take more ownership that this is, it's my life, it's my decisions, and it's going to become what I make of it, which I've never done that before. I would always blame everyone and everything else for whatever was going wrong or right, and just, I don't know. It's like having 2 months to just do nothing but work on yourself is an amazing feeling, It's new, and it's something I'd never experienced because, I was always just used to, okay, get sober, figure this out, complete whatever program it is, and then go back to work and hope it gets better. So I guess that's kind of the major thing that was different this time around.
Doesn't it, anybody have a question for Joe yet?
Nothing yet.
Okay. What you said right there is so unfortunate in the recovery community, everywhere but here, because I got all banged up, I'm whatever, go to treatment, I do the same worksheets the last time I went to treatment, and I go back to the same environment and do the same thing and expect something somehow to be different. Why don't I feel like those people I saw, they're all happy? If nothing changes, then you're not going to get the life that you deserve. And that's exactly what I've seen you do this time, is look at this and say, this finally isn't working. I'm not going to do the same thing. As you said, I am going to invest 2 months of my time to get the rest of my life to be able to do whatever I want. And that's what I've just been privileged and proud to watch you change. You could see it. I could see it in the IOP group. Your peers know you one way. I know you another way. And I'm watching, and I'm like, it's happening. And then it would be like, it's still happening. And then I'm like, it happened. And now you're off and running. So if somebody's sitting at home watching this right now that's struggling, what can you say to them that would help them jumpstart their life now that you've already know how to do?
I think it's honestly just being honest, I guess, is the best way. I think how to phrase this. I never admitted that I had a problem or that something was wrong with my life. For some reason, I wanted to project this image, this facade of, I'm great, man, everything's perfect, don't worry about me, And I think being able to admit that you're not okay is kind of like that first step, which I know it sounds kind of cliche, you admit you have a problem and all that, but for me it was being able just to say, okay, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I know something's not right. And just being able to say that to someone like you or a peer of someone and having them be like, okay, how do we get to the bottom of that then? Because drinking wasn't my problem. It was just a symptom of a deeper problem that I had to get in there and deal with and admit to. And a lot of people don't want to face that. I didn't want to face that for years, all the reasons and stuff that I was drowning out my drinking with. You told me you felt like I was just dead inside. Emotionally, I probably was. A lot of times when when the Thursday meetings come up, like the one last night, I don't talk because I don't want to cry on camera, I just want to listen and hear everything that's happening. But being able to be vulnerable with another human being, I think, is a huge, giant step that not a lot of people want to take. And for someone like myself who's just like, dude, there's no way I'm about to talk to this old dude with tattoos and tell him all of my deepest problems, I would never have done that 3 years ago. I told you some stuff that was going on, but the real deep issues, it took me a long time to deal with that and talk about that. And you sometimes just have to be uncomfortable to get what you need. So I would just say, I like this phrase that I've been using. It's okay to not be okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a problem and wanting help to deal with that.
On a lighter note, I love your sense of humor, the sarcasm that you have, and just you're funny. And when you first started, and this to me again was another example of, this kid's really getting it, is when you started, like, literally in our support group meetings saying, I'm Joe and I'm here because I'm going to take Todd's seat and take his job one day. And
That's
the first
still
time I absolutely. And the first time I remember you said that, I'm thinking, this kid's got some balls on him. I like it, you know. And I remember saying, well, here it is. Go ahead and take it. And the sense of humor that you bring every time you come in here, I benefit from that. I know other people do. Can you talk about what that's done for yourself to just be your genuine, authentic, funny, regular dude? How is that for you now?
It's great. You know, when I used to talk about my past and say, like, you know, people liked me when I was, you know, using or whatever, and I think that's just because I had a lot of anxiety about a lot of things. And when I was drinking or high, like, you know, those kind of inhibitions went away. Mm-hmm. And that's when I would start being funny and doing all that stuff. And now that I'm sober, I realize that I'm still that guy. I'm still funny. It's just I was hiding all of that under a lot of anxiety and everything. So now that I don't have that anxiety about being who I am and recognizing that people actually kind of like the guy that I am, you know, the humor and everything, it's really helped my self-esteem and my confidence. I mean, before I wouldn't talk, I wouldn't make jokes like that because I was always like, what if I make this guy mad? What if he doesn't get it? Blah, blah, blah. Now I'm just like, dude, whatever, I don't care. Like, this is who I am. Like, you're going to have to deal with it. And people seem to enjoy that, so I just kind of keep rocking with it. But, yeah, I mean, it's done a lot because it helps me build up that self-confidence that I didn't have when I felt like I was an outcast and I didn't really fit in anywhere. And now, instead of feeling like I'm outcast and I'm not good enough to fit anywhere, I take that, you know, I'm an outcast, and I use that as my advantage, so to say. Like, this is who I am. Like, this is who I'm going to be. I'm not going to change for someone or not be this person just because, you know, it's not a fit for someone and what they want. I mean, that's on them. That's not on me.
That's true.
I mean, that's probably the first time, and I'm 28 years old, and it's the first time I've been able to stand on my 2 feet and be like, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to be. You know?
I love it. You remember, I mean, we talked about it. There's over 2,500 people that watched our meeting last night. And I remember I had leaned over to you and wrote, we are privileged to be sitting here. Mm-hmm. And you wrote, I agree on there. So I'm thinking of how you are now and knowing you where you were. What do you think the former Joe, the drinking Joe, if you walked into that meeting last night, the same vibe, everything's the same, but you're that former guy, would you have gotten something out of that meeting?
I think so. It's honestly hard to say because that guy, I mean, he didn't take criticism constructively at all. He didn't take any advice. You know, he knew everything, and damn if you were going to change his mind.
Yep.
But I will say that a meeting like that would be very helpful because it was, I mean, just watching a lot of those people who got really emotional, like that was, I mean, those were people that you would never expect that kind of stuff from, and it was powerful.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, wow. And I think for a lot of people who don't know what we represent here and what we do, seeing that those people got that emotional about very raw things that were very personal and having no one judge them for it and having so much support, I think is huge.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who's like, you know, a little nervous about being on camera or coming in or, you know, what is this racing stuff about? What's all the green? What's going on? You know, I think it goes a long way to kind of easing those fears and letting those people know that this is a place of safety, you know, and comfort.
That's exactly why I asked you that question. It's because I don't know, you could have come in as the most angry, defiant person ever. And I don't know how anyone, if they just sat and listened, and I'm not just talking about last night. Last night was awesome. But in general, if someone can just come in and have the same open mind they do sitting at the bar with any type of drink someone will put in front of them, if you can apply that to sitting in here, there's no way it can't have an impact on somebody. You'd have to be, even if you were deaf and you could visually see the change in people, I don't understand how that couldn't have an impact that could set things going in another direction. And when I hear you talk about how you looked at sobriety initially and what you're doing with it now, it reminds me of that same type of thing, you know.
Well, and other places sobriety is just this like, it's this burden you have to carry almost.
Yeah.
They kind of make it look that way, or you're powerless, or you can't stop, you can't, and all I hear and what people I think express in these rooms is you can.
That's right.
We don't have, like, it's not a burden. I mean, I sure as hell didn't get sober to be miserable
Right.
and fearful. I got sober so I could go live, man.
Yep.
And I think that's a huge thing that's helped me. I'm always a pretty positive person now that I'm not, actively using. I've always been positive. And being in a room like this where we always talk about all the great things that we're doing and the great progress we're seeing and watching people grow and everything. I mean, one of my favorite people to watch here is Jeff.
Yeah.
I love Jeff, and I haven't told him this, so he's going to see this and he's going to come up and give me a hug later. But one day he stood up here, and you know how Jeff, when he gets really passionate about stuff, he talks real slow and he gets his hand motions, and he said, "I'm in 100%." And I was like, oh, wow. And then I had to look at myself, and I'm like, am I in 100%? And I thought about it for a lot, and I was like, I am, but that reinforces me, because now I know if I'm in trouble or if I'm struggling, I can go up to Jeff or anyone else and be like, hey, man, I'm having this, and instead of those people, well, you need to do this, it's like, hey, let's talk about it, let's see if we can help that. And it's just, it's positive, and it's just a lot of camaraderie here, and I love it.
One of the unique things that has been a part of our program since its inception is having our families with us in this format. So talk about what it's been like to have your family constantly here with you on Thursday nights.
It's great, because I know a lot of times before, when I would get sober, I would go off to my meetings or my IOP and come home, and they'd ask me about it, and I would be like, well, we talked about this, this is kind of what happened. But it was always like, you never felt like you were able to really tell them everything, because it was like, well, this is what we do, this is what happens. And so them being able to sit in here and see that and meet people who are going through the same thing they are, and then watch those people grow, I think is really helpful. I know my parents love coming here. I mean, for a while they started like semi-adopting people as they sat next to them.
Great.
So it was pretty awesome. And now when, my mom asks me like how things are going, or, whatever, we can really talk about it, as opposed to just, oh, it's fine, everything's fine, don't worry about it, because she sees everything that's happening here. She sees what we talk about when I come to places like this, and then she's able to talk to other families and see like, okay, I know, I guess let me back up. I know I'm not going to use the word she felt hopeless about me, but she didn't know what to do with me, which I know is a sentiment that a lot of parents express before they come in here, is they don't know what to do. They don't know who to turn to. And being able to come in here and meet with a parent who has a child who's done well and is continued to doing well, and just asking them like, okay, yes, my son's doing well, like, what are some things that I can do to start healing, and I think that's really helped them a lot. I know it's certainly brought our family closer together, to be more honest. My mom, as you said last night, she apparently didn't like me before, and now she likes me a lot. I gave her a lot of grief for that last night.
That was great.
No, it's true. I mean, I'm able to be a little bit more honest with her. When I have a problem, I don't just say it's fine, don't worry about it. We actually sit down and talk about it, which is huge. Before I would always hide everything. As I said, I'm fine, everything's okay, don't worry about it. But now, just being able to talk to them and have them experience like, this is what I do, this is what I'm a part of, like, I think was a really big step.
So here's the first final question. I'm sure we'll go on to another one, but what I'm thinking of closing with this is just having you say, what does the future look like for Joe?
It's immeasurably bright. I'm going to say that. I get to do whatever I want, which I think is fantastic. And now that I can think clearly, and I have, all the support I have with my friends and this place and everything. I mean, I've seen so many things have gone right since I've gotten sober that I can't you can't even imagine not being sober going forward. I mean, work, health. I mean, I used to hate running, and now I run every day. Like, I used to hate running, and now if I don't run 2 miles a day, I don't like it, man. I have to go do it. And, I mean, I can't even imagine where I'll be in a year from now. I mean, the amount of things that have been given to me, you know, it's amazing. So life looks great going forward.
You brought up something. You said it last night. I didn't know this about you. Talk about how much weight you've lost since you've been around.
When I came in here 10 months ago, I weighed about 160, 170 pounds, give or take. And now I weigh about 140.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Did have somebody that asked a question, does it make it harder to share the Thursday meetings when your family is there?
Great question.
I wouldn't say it makes it harder. It's what? Not really, but hearing my mom sometimes and the things that she says about me is hard to hear, but it's good to get it out there because then we can talk about it. We do talk about some things when we're home, but having her talk about the struggles and the things that I put my family through helps me to not only remember how bad it was, but remember how good it is now.
That's right.
And to make sure that, you know, I have people who are counting on me, and I have people who are holding me accountable. So I would say it's difficult, but like anything, you know, going through that only has made us stronger. It's only made me stronger.
That's whoever asked that. It's a great question, but don't you think? Oh, it was.
Oh, was it
Oh,
Alex?
it was Alex.
Yep.
Yep.
Alex.
He'll be calling in on Skype next Thursday. So.
All right.
Don't you think, on a serious note, Joe, we have to do that? I mean, we have to sit back and allow our families to speak their minds. We can't just brush that off to the side because it's not fair to them to not be able to share what it was like, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that me and the things that I did affecting me.
Yeah.
I used to think that, you know, my mom would always try to tell me, like, let's go get help. I said, who cares? It's just me. Like, who cares about it?
Yeah.
But now, realizing that I put all these people through hell, I mean, I have to let them do that. I have to let them say those things, not only to help them, but to help me too. And yeah, it hurts to hear it, but it's also makes me feel really good right after that to know I'm not doing that anymore. And that I'm never going to do that again and not put them through that again. So you don't realize that. I mean, we're selfish as addicts. You don't realize all the pain that you're putting on other people. You may only think that you are destroying your life, but you are a tornado and you're taking everyone with you whether you like it or not.
That's true.
So
Anything else?
Just a lot of people have said hello and thank you for sharing. And Alex said Pittsburgh represent.
oh, get out of here.
That's great. Joe, in closing, I truly want to say I'm honored that you're a part of us. It's been a privilege to watch you grow, and I'm just looking forward to what comes next. You
Me too,
taking my
man.
seat. All right, we're out. That's
Great
it.
job, guys.
Is it done? We do got to figure out a name for this thing.
Weekly success stories, man. How hard is that?
Yeah,